So nice to see everyone. Go ahead and have a seat. Cross the shins, one in front of the other. With the shins crossed, flex the feet. Place the hands on your thighs, press down. Lift up through the spine. So you have to push the feet into the floor a little bit to feel the thigh flex. So you move the femur bone into the hip. So you stop tilting forward and you ask your thighs to stabilize your pelvis. Keep the thigh flexed, push the foot down, drop the shoulders. Let the chin stay lifted, if not just slightly higher than neutral. And the eyes closed. Start to take a breath in and out in the space just before your practice begins. You start acknowledging that this is a different moment from the last. One part of your day ends, another part begins on the yoga mat. Become aware of the routine, maybe once a day or once a week with this class or a couple times a week, whatever the amount, you make time to get on your mat. You may use that time to do some of the same poses you've done dozens, hundreds of times before. But what's not the same is you, or the circumstances that might bring you here. How the poses affect you because you're different. So you have to recognize those differences so that there's a refreshing of it. So you're not always looking for the next cool pose or the cool modification, because those might not always be there. You might not always have the new prop or the idea of how to set something up. So instead of maybe looking for something new from the class, use the comfort of the idea that the class is there, poses are there, so you can look at yourself. It's part of the reason certain sequences were put together in yoga and were asked to do consistently, because teachers understood the poses are the same. We're the ones that change, and we're trying to learn how to differentiate each day. Differentiate how we've changed, whether we've healed or we've hurt. If we've gotten stronger or weaker. How have we changed from one time on our mat to the next? So you can not just measure, but really reflect upon all that you go through in a day, how the process of time changes you, and the wisdom that you get from that constant reflection. Right? Not just on your hamstring, but on how your body feels, how you feel about doing the routine. To reflect upon how your body feels so you can look back on your day, or your night. In this case, with an evening class, look back on your day to see how work affected you. The warm weather affected you. In combination with the passage of time and all of these other things. So it's never about right or wrong, my friends. It's not about finding the perfect combination to unlock the secrets of happiness or health, or whatever you're looking for here. but can you reflect upon you? All that you go through, all that you change and how you change with each moment of the day. So there's no use waiting. No use waiting for the teacher to give you the secret, because there is not one. Everything you're looking for is already answered in your experiences. You just have to reflect on them enough to let it go from a moment of history to a moment of wisdom, so that wisdom can then go on to influence everything that comes after. Because once a pose is done, it's over. But once wisdom is gained, it changes us profoundly. So let your practice today, my friends, maybe be one of comfort in poses you know, the stability that they offer, so you can reflect on you, whether tumultuous life or calm existence, so that you recognize it's not about having the perfect thing or the right combination, but everything you need is already in you. You're just learning to put the pieces together to give you a whole picture of the world and how you move in it and through it with grace and maybe some joy. Bring the palms together at the chest, thumbs touching the sternum. Roll them shortly 3 times and then begin. Take a breath. Bow your head. Salute the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into your lap. Let your head rise and your eyes open. So nice to see everybody. Go ahead, come on up to a standing position. Go ahead to the end of your yoga mat, turning so the length of it is behind you. Thighs together, feet together into Dustin. Heels touching, calves coming together firm. Thighs nice and strong. Stretch both arms up, palms facing in, Hatha. Lifting up through the side body, standing nice and tall, lengthening through the ribs. Backside, front side of the body, the length of the yoga mat behind you. This is important later. Lift up nice and tall, even though you may do this pose many times before. Think about how your body feels in it. Just as I said before, this pose may be the same, but reflect upon the difference in it from maybe the last time you did it. Or if you feel a sore muscle or ease on one side versus the other, take note. Because the easement of our suffering from yoga is not just the physical action, but as I said before moments ago, it's the wisdom we gain from reflecting upon what we're going through in these poses, even though the poses might be something what some might call basic or boring. The act of routine can be incredibly enlightening because it is an act of measurement if we reflect upon it. Do not let routine mean that you become disengaged from it, but let it become like a measuring stick. You know, if you lay a ruler on a piece of paper to measure, it's not boring because every inch is an inch, or half an inch is half an inch, or every mark is not spaced differently than the last. There's an understanding in that. There's guidance in that. So if you find your mind want to wander from something that may feel easy for you or uninventive to you, what in your own self can't stay in something that feels like that? Exhale, fold forward, take both hands to the floor, uttanasana, standing forward stretch. Use blocks if you need. Might even just have a block or so nearby for any other poses we do. So from Tadasana to Urdhva to standing forward fold, lengthening through the arms, through the legs. Bending the knees if you have to, just to release some of the tension. Feel where your body is bending the most. Is it bending at the hips, right where the hinge of the pelvis and thigh? Or are you bending in the low back? Bend your knees slightly, little more than just a hair, right? You know, enough to feel your hamstring relief and more weight go into the foot and into the glute. And when you think about the leg, the strength of the leg, do not make it from straightening the knee, but push against the floor. Do not straighten the knee yet. Lengthen the hamstring up to the buttock so you feel like you're trying to widen the buttock. Lift the inner buttock up and widen it from inner to outer. So your thighs have to rotate internally. Look at your thigh before you straighten the knee. Do not yet. Keep the knee bent. Turn your knees towards each other a little. And when you do, try to take that twist and internally rotate the thigh higher above the knee. So you feel some width in action. Don't crunch in your shoulders and neck to do this as you try to create and find the mobility of the body to do so. Recognize where the body itself wants to create action other than that leg itself. Lengthen the spine slightly. You may think about this like stretching the navel towards the rib cage. So your head extends out, your chest extends out. And take each index finger and grab a hold of a big toe. Right hand grabs right big toe, left hand grabs left big toe. Work the rotation of your thighs. Bend your elbows slightly wide so you feel the upper back wide. Don't just bend your elbows to pull your chest down. Bend your elbows out a little bit so you feel so it's like you're trying to widen from the armpit out, ribs out, upper back out. And then exhale, move the thighs back. Lengthen the back of the knee by pushing down through the hole of the foot, up through the hips higher. And bend your elbows out wide to challenge the upper body to then fold downward more at the hinge of the hip. Because if your leg muscles are active in uttanasana, pushing down through the big toe, even though your fingers are under it, you're pinning your fingers firm into the floor by the big toe joint to keep the active muscle of the front of the leg. And using the visual sense, turn the eyes towards first the feet, look at their placement. Is one foot pushing down more than the other? Is one slightly turned out? As Mr. Angar would say, how do you ask the pose to change you if you're not giving the pose the full attention to put it on yourself? Or more likely, he would say something like, your parts of your body are doing yoga like a dead fish, just lying there. Then look at your knees. Travel up the length of the shin. Is each shin bone moving back? Are your knees centered towards the face, if not slightly in, because you're trying to rotate internally? And when you look at your elbows, is each elbow bent equally? If we want balance, we start with the senses to help guide us into understanding and feeling it. to see it, and then we can go from there. So you get time in at least visual alignment to start, to change feeling of alignment, and then everything that comes off of that. There's no trick to the yoga poses to make them enlighten you. Only time you put in with that level of dhyana or focus. Even a pose like uttanasana here, we've been in for a couple minutes, can give you a lot to feel. Not just in your poor hamstrings, but as I keep asking you to move something or adjust something or turn a sense onto it, the pose becomes greater. The mind works harder. Tristan's already yawning because her internal computer is starting to overheat. Bend your knees slightly. Take your fingertips onto the floor just next in front of your feet. Bend your knees a little deeper. Step your right foot back about 3.5 to 4 foot into a lunge. Back leg long, front knee bent. Can you push through the big toe on your front left foot as if it was still Tadasana? Can you engage your back leg to be long like it was Uttanasana? So in the action of that lunge, there is still some idea of feeling from Uttanasana and Tadasana to Uttanasana to this. Are your hips level? Is your right hip dropping down lower than your left? Or can you make the right thigh as strong as your left leg, your right leg as strong as your left leg, so it's not your right hip falling down or pulling down, but the right thigh is keeping that pelvis stable. So now hop your right foot back another inch or two, so the left knee has to bend more and your hips come down more equal in action together. That the lengthening action is not from force, but from making more space in between each thigh, the right leg extending back, the left knee bending. So the base of the pelvis lengthens from front to back in this action. So Pratima, hop your right foot back farther. Open those hips up, friend. There you go. Use all that mat space. Find the stability and strength in the left leg, which is what I call the power leg. The front leg is a lot of power. The back leg is a lot of your balance. Exhale, hop your right foot back another couple inches. Wiggle them back, hop it back. But keep both of those legs working with equal power, even though they're in different form. So that each time you create a little bit more space, the hips come down, so you're creating a broadness across the base pelvis. Let your body weight shift from the glute instead of maybe tuck. Let it come down right there at the sacral plate towards the floor. So the left and right hip drop equally. And this is where the tilt starts to kind of take place. And the tilt, I mean, is the right hip goes lower than the left. If you let your sacral plate move down, so both hips come down lower, if they can. Tightness is tight, it's all right. That right thigh still has to be strong in the lift because the right side is trying to balance the right side of your body in that. Just because the back knee and the back thigh could work less and you could get lower does not mean you are treating each part the same intent and action. The secret, I would say, of any asymmetrical pose, if there was one, is that both sides must still be engaged with the same intent of space rather than allowance of one to move easier, which would then let you just disconnect and only feel the burn. Take a nice breath, step the right foot up next to your left foot. I must have felt like a mile of a kick up. Bend your knees a little. Keep your right foot where it is, step your left foot back. Don't go to your fully max. You now know what is about to happen. So go 3 foot, just don't go 4 foot and then think you're going to somehow stretch to 6 foot. Start with that left foot back, that right knee bent, move the right knee above the right heel. And then start to check in. Is your right foot pressing equal into the floor, front of the foot to the back of the foot? Where is your right knee in the relation to the rest of your body? Is the right knee wanting to fall out to the side? Is it collapsing towards the center of your body line? Can you get the heel? Can you get the knee right above the heel, pointing forward? Can your left thigh be just as active as the right thigh, even though the left thigh is not holding the body weight? So even though the left may not bear a problem or work right now, it is still active in its engagement to help the body be stable. So that when you, on the next exhale, hop the left foot back about 4 or 5 more inches if you want. That broadness of the base of the hip, that left thigh is still engaged. As I used to teach, I would say, if I came by and pushed my hand on the back of your thigh and pushed down, would your hip drop? So it's not about locking your knee, but think about that strong quad all the way up to the front of the hip, pulsing, pushing towards the sky. Upper body still, your chest going to be on your right thigh more or less. And then maybe wiggle your left foot back just that extra little inch. Challenge now to more space front to back. So the right knee stays bent, extending forward, the left leg extending back and up. And then your sacral plate right above the gluteal cleft, right before just the spine itself. Let it descend as that quad engages. Your quads burn because now there's not the weight on the psoas and the groin, but deep in those 2 greater muscle sets, asking them to fire so all the tight pelvis can move. Stay up. Take a nice deep breath. Exhale, step your left foot up next to your right foot. Uttanasana, standing forward stretch. We are so happy to be back here now. Bend the knees. Lift up through the glute. Remember, rotate the thighs internally. Rotate the knees slightly in. Use your sight to push down through so you're visually active through each foot. Visual, I mean, are your toes roughly the same color? Are they pointing the same direction? Are your knees pointing the same direction, or at least trying to move in the same direction? Always check in with yourself. If you ever read the Sanskrit for student, it's Sisya, or one who walks in darkness, and it's not about a blame of ignorance, but it is more about how we move through like we're in the dark. We don't see where our body is. We don't feel where our body is. Can each movement of even simple actions like we're doing be with such focus that you're aware of where your body is in all points in space, right? In a static pose, a symmetrical static pose like this, where we're holding for length, you get to use your sight easier. Check in with your breath. What's it sound like as you work through the pose? Bend your knees slightly. Even in movement, when you step your right foot back about 3 foot into a lunge again, keep your eyes on some part of you that you haven't paid attention to before in the movement, and what happens to that piece? Does your left foot dance around, or is it stable? Does your left knee wiggle left and right? So with now your right foot back behind you, do not step your right foot behind your left foot. You step it along the same line as it was when it was next to, right? You don't slide it over, you just slide it back. Right? You're not on balance beams. Bend that left knee. Take your right knee down to the floor. Laying the right shin flat. Bend your left knee deeper, stretching the left knee forward towards the toes. Prajapitya can usually go one of two directions. Pigeon goes one of two ways, Racha Picha. And my mind blanks. There's two different ways the leg goes. We'll start that. I'll come back to the full name here in just a moment when my brain resets. There is the shin laying on the floor, normal pigeon, or what I would say is normal for most commonly taught in the United States. And then there's a version where the foot stays on the floor like what you're doing now, and it's about how far the knee extends past and we lift the leg. So you've got a wide base of the pelvis now from dropping the right knee down and extending the leg back. So with your fingertips on the floor, or if you might need blocks underneath your hands to help you kind of lift the chest up here. Keep the left knee bent. Lean your upper body forward more so your left knee moves towards the left toes. Drag your right leg forward a little bit, like you're dragging that right shin bone. Move your hips towards your left calf. Move your hips up. Literally move your whole body. Like that, yes. So even if you have to pick your back knee up and kind of hop forward, Tristan is now a little more in the action. She's squeezing her left thigh, the left hamstring, towards her left calf. She's flexing her left glute and pushing it forward. And then after you hold that for a little bit, let the groin open. Remember the sacral plate here on the back side, just above the gluteal cleft, draws down. The glutes fire to draw it forward. So right there, that plate descends towards the front side of the pelvis. Your glutes then tuck it under. This form of the pose is actually quite nice for releasing a lot of the groin hip pose, and it has a lot of the same technique in it that a forward fold does. The width and broadness of the buttock, the length of the spine. But as I said before, the pose gets more active the closer you bring your left leg towards your left calf. So keep your left foot where it is. Bring your body a little closer by sliding your right knee a little bit closer to the left foot. So the left knee lunges more. The left knee must bend deeper, and the space between your left calf and your left thigh shrinks slightly. The tightness of the left hamstring or the left groin is what must be worked through to release the glute to come to the calf. So this is just the leg action. Now the back leg must be active just as the front is. So push your right shin into the floor. So your right glute, even though it descends because of its flex and the drop of the sacral plate, the right shin presses down so you're not twisting to the right. Because if you look at your pelvis, your left side wants to lift, your right side wants to drop. There should be some engagement to try and keep the right hip up. So your left side does not just end up bearing all the weight. You're not putting an uneven tilt to the spine. And quad. Sharp. Just don't push forward as hard. Push your right thigh, push through your right thigh better. Now do your hips. Feel the difference? Place both sets of fingers on the floor just in front of your left foot. Step your back foot next to your front foot. Back to uttanasana. So your right foot comes forward, feet come together. Step your left foot back into the lunge. Step back into that long lunge and look where your right knee is. Is your right knee above your heel, or did it go back because you stepped way too far back and you didn't keep that right knee, right foot steady? Use your visual to see how your body moved in it. And then you can assess, did I move my leg back in this pose with that level of awareness to keep my knee above my heel, to keep my thighs in line with the rest of my body? It's part of the work of awareness, is not just in the moment when we're being tested by the pose, right? Thinking that the awareness should only be in the final form of the pose is like saying, well, I'm only going to try when it's test time. There is no test time, not with me, not with any good teacher. Every moment on the mat is your own testing of your own self to have that clarity or that sharpness or that dedication for even a simple thing to be done, as Mr. Iyengar would say, with, how did he put it? With the ardent focus as if they were your prayers. Drop your left knee to the floor. Lean the right hip, lean the hips towards the right thigh so you start making a wide opened Ekapada. And then just even here, before we start shortening the gap to go deeper into that lunge action of the right side where it will work into the groin deeper and a lot of those other muscles, become aware of the tilt of your left and right hip. If you take a right hand onto the outer right hip, feel the height of it, and then take a hand to your outer left hip and feel the height of it, they're going to feel unequal. Because it's easy when we start to drop forward to disengage that left leg and lose the action of the femur bone stabilizing that left hip. So your left shin must push down so that left thigh, just like in the lunge, still stabilizes that left side. It might make the stretch harder, but wah. Now you are doing it with focus. You feel alive. Even if alive is uncomfortable, it's still better than being as a dead fish. With both hands on the block, slide your left knee forward a couple inches so you can bend the right knee deeper and shorten the space between your right calf and your right hamstring. Your right hamstring draws in towards the calf deeper. The knee lunges forward past the right ankle, past the toes over time. Back left shin pushes down, femur bone inserts into hip. So even though they're not perfectly level, because this is an asymmetrical pose, everything is slightly off, there's still that dedication to not let it be passive on the left. The activeness of your practice is in all the small spaces. It is easy to forget because you only want to pay attention to the big stuff, as if that is your only reward. No. Slide your left knee up farther, a couple more inches. Bend that right knee deeper. And now at this point, you should be still pushing the left shin down. Feel that sacral plate right above the glutes. Let it come down. Flex the buttocks and draw them forward, especially the right one, so the right glute cuts towards that right calf deeper. If you're thinking this feels like the splits, it's not quite, but it is part of what you learn to do to get to Hatha, which is where we're going. Hatha being the front to back split action, named after the great Monkey King, or trickster god. There's a lot. Good. Take a couple breaths. Find some strength in your right leg, left leg, equal for a moment, even though you may be challenged. Use your senses. Don't let your eyes close, but look at yourself. See where you really are in space and time here. Where are you at in this point in your life in this pose? How do you feel? How do you work? Are you working hard to punish yourself? Or are you working hard to enlighten yourself? Be aware of those things. Remember, as I've always said, yoga is not here to punish you. Take a nice breath. Push down through your right foot. Step your left foot next to your right foot. Uttanasana, standing forward stretch. Fingertips on the floor. And then before you go, into the next, again, reassess where this pose is for you. Not just after the others, but did you step the feet together with that level of awareness? Did your feet line back up? Did your knees line back up? Don't make it about rigidity. Be aware of how you flow in through the poses. If you go look at old videos of Mr. Iyengar, the guy is constantly in movement. But he did it with the dedication of in the dharana or focus and discipline that came from years of static practice that he he developed, and then could keep that same level of heart, that focus in the movement. That awareness of where one is in space, you know, metaphorical idea of where one is in the world. And then he's step your right foot back. Let's go for a little bit more of this version of Ekapada. Good. Keep that left knee above the heel. Good job, Tris. Awareness. Drop the right knee down. Push the right shin down so that you begin to engage the back of the right leg as much as the left leg. Bend that left knee. Let it begin to move forward. Let the hip sacral plate come down so you can engage the hips to come down. And don't push. Don't push like you're trying to split your groin to the floor. When you start to do front to back engagement, base broadening of the pelvis, one of the easiest ways to think about doing it is if I'm trying to push the split middle of the groin to the floor. That will lead to pain. The legs must be stable and broadening the base of the pelvis, not right in the groin or the perineum, all those will broaden. But think about the center of each hamstring or each thigh moving in their respective directions. So the pelvis moves in those respective directions. Broaden your awareness from just the area that gets the greater stretch, but how the areas on each side of that stretch can support, stabilize, or move that. Slide your right knee forward a couple more inches so you can bend your left knee deeper, drawing the left hamstring to the left calf and moving the left knee farther out. Keep bending. Now, place both hands on your hips. Lift your chest up, but don't let your hips come up. Notice how much the hips wanted to come up in that one action. Flex that right thigh hamstring, push the shin down. Let your SI move down. Stretch both arms straight up. Just even this action requires so much stability and power. Keep bending that front knee, Chaya. More Chaya. Yes, keep going farther. It will feel like your belly comes to your thigh, and it does in a way, but only from the bend of the knee, not from the drop of the chest. Hands on the blocks, slide your right knee another couple inches forward. Bend the left knee deeper. Hands on your hips. Keep your hands on your hips as you lift the chest up, but use your hands as a guide for how much your hips or your groin want to do the work of lifting you. Push through the outer parts of your body. So push through each foot to lift you without the legs straightening you up. So your outer core muscles must pick your chest up as your knees go into the lunge. Arms up. Keep bending that left knee any degree to create that extension, that broadening on that side of the pelvis. Right knee back just a couple inches, Pratima. It's a little too close, dear. There you go. You want to be able to bend that left knee very deep. There you go. Much better base widening of the pelvis. Excellent. There's a lot of challenge in this. This challenges the foot, the knees, the hips, all of it. Hands on the blocks. Step the right foot next to the left foot. Uttanasana. And even though that may have been challenging, going a little deeper, lifting a little higher, where was your awareness at in that process? Flex your thighs, don't just lock your knees. Even in moments of fatigue, we still must ask those fatigue muscles to be with us in the challenging time. We are lucky today because we may get to practice. You're practicing something you may not have done much before. You're getting some instruction on it. So today may be a different pose than you do normally. But just as even if we go through it step by step, piece by piece, more and more and more, you start to create that relationship with it, don't allow yourself to disconnect even when there is discomfort, because the ego will tell you you're not good enough or flexible enough or strong enough. And even though you may have to back off because you're pushing hard enough that there's pain, does not mean your dedication or your focus or your work backs off. Just the force backs off. Step the opposite foot back. Should be your left foot. Take the shin to the floor, flattening out the back foot. Begin to bend that right knee, lunge it forward. This is also a very good pose to help you do malasana better. A lot of the deep, deep knee bends, because a lot of the stuff that keeps our hips from dropping low into the bends is worked here in this version of pigeon. Place both hands on your hips. Check the balance of your hips as your back leg is active as your front leg, and you'll feel the difference on your outer hip bones with your hands. Lift your chest up. Bend that right, stretch that right thigh forward. Let that sacral plate come down into the pelvis. Very good, Prajna, very nice. Keep bending that knee, Chaya. Good, Ryan, good balance, keeping the right knee centered to the leg hip. If you get pain in the groin, that means one side of the other or the legs has not stabilized and is not working. That groin muscle is catching your body weight, and it will hurt. But that hurt is not there to tell you that you are bad. It is there to tell you that you are not engaging all of your stability or power. Stretch both arms straight up. Create the full lift of the spine. Bring your hands down to the block. Slide your left knee forward just an inch or two. Then lunge the right knee deeper. Draw the right hamstring towards the right calf more. Then take your hands on your hips. Keep your legs in the action. Pick your chest up. Stretch both arms up. Base pelvis stability asks of us consistent awareness of the power of the legs. You all right? Just hard. Arms up if you can. You got it, Chaya. Even if you fall, there's no reason but to try. It is not about being perfect, right? It is about being you in your pose. A falling student who tried is more loved and is a more hardworking student than the student who will only do it if they get all the perfect information. Hands down on the block. Step your left foot next to your right foot. Good job. Uttanasana. Don't lock the knee. Engage the thigh. Do not go to an old habit of darkness. Engage into all the stuff that I've asked before. Even if you know even more stuff to engage and to focus in, that's fine. But at least be aware of how your body wants to auto do those, and you have to catch yourself. Break the habit. Because habit is something you don't have to see. Even if you do this pose 10,000 hours, if you don't pay attention to how you're doing it, you learn nothing. You may feel different, but you will not learn what that feeling is. What's your thoughts? Microbend your knees. No. What was that? Put the right leg back. Step your left leg back, bending the knees as you step the left foot back about 3 foot. I know. Step your left leg back. Tristan was confirming that it was left leg. It is true. Now, right knee above right heel, just to start. Drop your left knee to the floor. Left shin presses down, and so that femur bone is into the hip. Both hands on your hips. Pick your chest up without your hips coming up. So your spine lifts. This is a backward bending pose. As the legs descend and go one way, the spine must learn to go the opposite. But let's help teach the legs to go their direction. All the muscle we engage on the hamstrings to move the legs hip forward and down creates that. So your back leg is just as true. So let us make the left hip and hamstring really become aware. Bend your left knee, pull your left heel towards your buttock without your hips moving back towards it. Bend your left knee, picking your foot up, pulling your heel in on its own power towards it. Now you feel your left thigh flexed, yes? That flexion of your left thigh is now what you should be doing to engage the stability of your hips. It almost feels like your hips come up out of the pose, yes? Now you are working the left and right side equally. You are not putting weight into your groin. Now the power becomes, do your glutes help move you forward into the pose? So can you put your hands on your glutes as Tristan is doing? Think about the muscle of the top of the buttock moving down to the bottom and the bottom moving forward. It is extremely strong and stabilizing. Take both arms up, but keep all the rest of it. Lift your spine, chest up without losing your legs. Challenge two parts to work opposite of each other. Exhale, hands down. Bring your left knee forward just 1 inch. Hands on your hips. Chest up. Right hip, thigh, groin, move out. Bend that back knee so you now stabilize your left leg. You may wobble, you may fall, but right, it's not about being the perfect student. You have all the information. The information you need is in you doing, not the teacher thinking you're ready enough to give it to you. Teachers are good advisors. We're not genies. Bend the right knee any degree deeper. Stretch both arms up. Interlace your fingers, turn your palms up to the ceiling. Move the arms back any degree you can to challenge the chest to open, the shoulder blades to move into the spine. So your chest begins the action of moving backwards as your hips draw ever forward towards that right front foot. Ooh. So almost makes you want to do an old school pigeon pose, right? The more common one. There's a lot happening here, huh? Hands down. Step your left foot next to your right foot, uttanasana. Do it with focus. Be aware of your thigh muscles so there becomes a grace in your movement because everything is done with intention. Unlock your knees. Step the opposite foot back on an exhale. Take your right knee to the floor. With both left knee above the left heel for now. It will go past the heel. It will go towards the toes. Bend your back knee, picking the foot up. So you feel that thigh, hip stabilize. Both hands on your hips. Lift your chest up. And so begin to feel here the work the front leg has to do. Now it is holding back the power or the weight of the body from going forward. There is strength in that front leg. There is balancing action in the back leg. But there are many different powers. There's power of movement, there's power of balance. Movement in the front, balance in the back. Flex each glute. Let your sacral plate come forward towards the front and down. That gives your pelvis a lot of the space to move. You're not trying to hold rigid in your spine. Take both arms up. Keep picking that back foot up higher. And if your knee doesn't go past, your front knee does not go very far past your heel on the first few times, that's normal. This is very challenging pelvic floor work. Lots of hip stuff, lots of stability stuff here. Hands on the blocks. Hop your right knee just a inch forward, not very far forward, just a little bit forward. Bend that left knee to start the lunging. So your left thigh comes in towards your left calf. Hands on your hips. Chest up. When you bring your chest up, let your sacral plate go forward. Let your left knee go forward more. Arms up, back leg up. Interlace your fingers, turn your palms up to the ceiling. Look up. So the whole of your spine extends. If you lose your balance, so be it. Now you're a little more aware that past that point, there can only be stability that you gain. As a friend of mine would once often say, I have so much room for growth here. Lean your arms back past the ears, so your upper chest must lift and extend. Take a breath. Hands down. Step your right foot next to your left foot. Uttanasana. Engage the thigh. Look to the foot. Look to the knee. Look to your body. Look to your experience. Look to all that you've done to get to this point. Look to where your senses want to go away from this moment and ask them in the challenging time to stay with and in you. Notice if there's a sound outside, how your mind wants to go to it instead of staying with you. That your eyes want to close. Stay with you in these challenging times. I'm here with you. Even if it's auditory or visual, I'm with you. Can you stay with you? Can you stay in your own challenges? Can you stay with your own successes? Can you deny nothing that you go through? Because to do so would be to diminish the color and the story of your life. And to me, that is a tragedy. Step your right foot back, bending the left knee. Last time. There is hope. Take your right knee to the floor. Lunge the left knee forward. Just dropping the hips into it so the left thigh comes to the left calf. Eventually, your left thigh hamstring is laying on your left calf. Maybe I'll show you at the end of class. Hands on your hips. Pick your chest up. Pick your back leg up. And notice the challenge in that, because now the thigh must lift all of your body. Take both arms, stretch them back like they're trying to reach for the right foot. And if they can grab the right foot, great. Just don't try not to fall as you do. Good. Now, it is not as important to pull the foot to the glute. It is more important to lunge the hips forward, continuing the forward momentum of the body. And here's the fun part, ready? Fun contradiction coming. When you have a hold of the foot, if you have a hold of the foot, instead of pulling the foot to your butt, push your foot away from your butt into your hands to drop your hips into the pose. So the strength of your back leg, front to hold you up, back to extend you is engaged. How's that feel? Feels better now, doesn't it? Tristan says it feels better now. Pratima, push your back foot against your hands hard. And then bend your left knee, dear. Wobble, wobble, wobble. You got it, Chaya. Come on. Give it a go, friend. This way, Chaya, when you go teach your class full of people in India, you can go, the teachers in America are so much meaner than in India. I am the kindest teacher you will ever have. Then if they misbehave, say, you behave, or I will ask Dustin to come and teach you these poses. It is the gift of all teachers that their senior teacher gets to be the boogeyman. A few more seconds. Play with the pose a little bit. Back off of the front knee, work the back leg, and then the front leg. Let your chest lift as you do this. You're in the last action on this side. Find some fun in it. Even if it's, I find fun by coming out and getting out of this class. Hands on the block. Step the right foot next to your left foot, uttanasana. Go right to the engagement of your thighs. Go back to those same things we've been doing this whole hour. And every time you go into it, until you go into it with that same focus where the thighs engage, there's a smoothness to it. I would say that it's not a pose that you're fully doing yet. because I'm asking you to fully do it. Not just your knee, not just your hip, but you, all of the consciousness of each of you. Step your opposite foot back. And when you do, can you put all of your consciousness in it so you feel all the skin move, thigh move, muscle move? The physical challenge is here. Where is the mental challenge? Where is the challenge of that part of us that is hard to define, that this is our work to define through trial, through effort? Take your left knee to the floor, hands on your hips, pick your chest up. Bend your back knee, feel the lift of feel the stability that it brings, even if it means your pelvis lifts slightly, which is better. There you go. Then stretch your arms back, reach for the foot. Even if you need to use a strap, please do. Once you get a hold of the foot, let the front leg continue its movement forward. Let the sacral plate still come forward and down. Push the foot against the hand to lift your core body up. So your upper thoracic moves back. So it's almost like, and it is, because there's a version of pigeon pose where you grab your back foot when it's behind you and the leg is straight. That is a backward bend for later. Push your foot against your hand like you're trying to straighten the left leg back to the floor. And it drags your body back towards it. As the front part of your body descends into the pose, or the front part of your pelvis and your front leg goes forward, the upper torso and back leg go back. Take a few breaths in it. Experiment backing off the front leg to work the back better, working the front more, back to front. And as always, you see Tristan is putting a pad under her knee. Needless suffering is no benefit to anybody. One must ask themselves. Making your knee hurt because of a hard floor is not suffering that brings enlightenment. Even though people like myself would often push to do it like that because I am stubborn. All right, hands on the blocks. Step the left foot next to the right foot. The last uttanasana. Do it with all the supreme focus that you've gained, the difference from your body in each time we've done the pose. Grab your big toes, one in each hand, index and middle finger, hooked around those poor big toe joints. Look at your feet, look at yourself. See all of you in this moment, just as I would see you in the public class as we do now. Bend your elbows wide, lengthen the spine any degree, not by straightening it, but by lengthening the back of the body down towards the floor without crunching your ribs. So your breath stays free because your abdomen, or not your abdomen, your bottom ribs are extending. Your hamstrings may scream. But ask yourself to feel other parts of you other than the ones that are the most challenged. Don't close your eyes, but use your eyes to see your hands, your elbows, your biceps, your arms. Use your hearing to hear your breath. Bend the knees deep, moving your chest to your thigh bone. Stretch both arms straight out in front of you. Uttanasana. Flex your glutes. Draw your glutes towards your calf muscles, deep forward with the knee. Pick your chest arms up, very much what we did earlier, because every pose teaches us something about another pose. And look up and hold. Butts down. Drop that hip. Drop it low. Drop both of them. Stand all the way up, full Urdhva Hastasana, or yes, Urdhva Hastasana. Arms down, Tadasana. Lay down, Savasana. Good Jabasana. Let your eyes close, friends. As you find the differences in your breath now from in the beginning, or you feel the differences in your body now from in the beginning, take a moment to reflect on your practice, on what happened for you through each moment, how challenges were met, how compassion was given to rest or to back off. If there were things you did and created for yourself in this pose that were nothing about what I said, and that is not a bad thing. That does not make you a bad student, but makes you a student of yoga and of your yoga. No teacher, even the most brilliant, can tell you everything about you in a pose. They can only tell you everything about them in a pose. And then you have to hear what is similar, and then you go through it, and then you share your experience. And yoga is made bigger. The world is made more connected. Connectedness through action instead of just philosophy. And not just on your mat, but off. The Native American people have many rituals like sweat lodges or things like that that recognize that we do some of these things and we suffer in them to understand what suffering is so we might understand others. Now, if I went through that class, I would say I suffered a little. Yoga is a part of the ritual work of that too, that we challenge ourselves and we understand others through such challenge. We suffer a little in class together, right? You made a friend who's hamstring cramped like yours. I'm here with Tristan because she came in to suffer in my yoga class just as I had. So recognize, my friends, you've not just done things on your mat, but you've done things that will affect you off of it. Now the greater part of your practice begins. Can you keep that sharpness, that dhyana, that discipline of awareness of you as you move through the world, as you move through the space you're in, of the quiet moment, into the active world? That your practice does not end here. That you go forward different, not just from time, but from work, clear, and ready to show you. So rest, my friends, for a couple of minutes and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice. Slowly increase the depths of your breathing. Bend your knees. Roll to the side. Exhale. Slowly up you come. Told you I'd get the name, so before this recording stops. Ekapada Rajakaputanasana. Those of you who want to see the big man do it. Where you're going. You did it. Until we meet again. Namaste.